Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The storm gathering over Genoa City was no longer quiet or distant. By the time the week began to unravel, every family secret, every buried grudge, and every dangerous obsession was pushing closer to the surface, threatening to explode all at once. In the middle of it all stood Lily Winters, carrying the emotional weight of a family already fractured by pain. As she prepared to leave for New York for Malcolm Winters' critical surgery, the tension inside the Winters family home felt suffocating, heavy with resentment that no one could quite let go of. Kane Ashby's agreement to donate bone marrow should have brought relief, but instead it reopened old wounds that had never truly healed. Lily tried to stay composed as she asked Nate about the risks Kane would face during the procedure, her voice trembling beneath the calm exterior she fought so hard to maintain. But Devin Winters had no sympathy left for Kane at all, openly mocking the man and refusing to hide his bitterness. To Devin, Kane was still the same man who had caused destruction and chaos in their lives, and no heroic act could erase that history. Lily admitted that Kane's arrest had terrified her, especially after he promised he would even jump bail if necessary just to help Malcolm survive. Yet Devin remained unmoved, convinced that every choice Kane made still revolved around Lily rather than genuine redemption. Nate quietly sided with Devin, creating an atmosphere that left Lily emotionally cornered and exhausted. Still, she pushed back, reminding them that regardless of their anger, Kane was helping Malcolm when it mattered most. Devin's frustration spilled into something deeper, something darker, as he confessed that his rage was not only about Kane anymore. Mariah's unresolved crime continued to haunt him, especially because he believed nobody was truly being held accountable for the damage they caused. Lily immediately recognized the pain underneath his anger and pointed out that his resentment toward Kane was tangled together with his disappointment over Mariah and Abby. Devin finally admitted the truth he had been avoiding, confessing how deeply it bothered him that Dominic still wanted to see Mariah despite everything that had happened. The emotional exhaustion in Devin's face became impossible to ignore, and for a moment Lily softened, urging him to visit Mariah and finally begin healing instead of drowning in resentment. It was one of the few tender moments in a conversation filled with bitterness and emotional scars. Before leaving, Lily quietly asked Nate and Devin to keep Kane in their thoughts during the surgery, a request that hung awkwardly in the room after she walked away. Once she was gone, Devin admitted to Nate that he still believed Kane was dangerous for their family and feared Lily might eventually allow him back into their lives completely. That fear lingered heavily in the silence between them, like a warning of even bigger emotional consequences waiting just ahead. Elsewhere, another crisis was spiraling completely out of control. Nick Newman was slipping further into darkness, and the people around him were finally beginning to notice the terrifying truth. Adam Newman confronted his brother directly after noticing Nick's strange behavior, asking him point blank if he had fallen back onto pills again. Nick avoided the question with practiced ease, immediately redirecting the conversation and pretending nothing was wrong. He even joked that Adam could search him if he wanted, though viewers already knew Nick had secretly taken his last fentanyl pill earlier in the park. Beneath the sarcasm and defensive attitude, Nick's desperation was becoming impossible to hide. Adam tried to stay calm, offering support and concern, but Nick brushed him off and insisted he simply felt stressed and hungry because of the ongoing hunt for Matt Clark. Then came the chilling revelation that changed everything. Nick calmly explained that he had a plan for Matt, and that plan was murder. He intended to provoke Matt into attacking him while Detective Burrow witnessed the confrontation, allowing Nick to kill Matt under the justification of self-defense. The horrifying certainty in Nick's voice stunned Adam, who immediately warned him that this reckless obsession could send him straight to prison. But Nick no longer cared about consequences. In his mind, this was justice. This was revenge. He even seemed surprised that Adam objected, reminding him that Adam himself had always operated in moral gray areas. Adam urged Nick to let Newman Security handle the situation instead, but Nick's anger exploded instantly. Furious and unstable, he stormed away, leaving Adam deeply shaken by how far his brother had fallen. Meanwhile, Victor Newman updated Sharon Newman and Noah Newman about the ongoing search for Matt Clark, and the atmosphere inside the Newman home was equally tense. Noah revealed that Matt genuinely did not seem to recognize Audra, leading him to believe the amnesia might actually be real. Surprisingly, Victor agreed, seeing Matt's memory loss as a tactical advantage they could exploit before his memories returned. Sharon, however, desperately wanted law enforcement to take control before the situation became even more dangerous. Victor dismissed the idea completely, insisting this was now personal and that the Newman family would handle it themselves. The divide between Sharon's fear and Victor's ruthless determination only deepened the growing sense that disaster was coming fast. At Crimson Lights, the strange mystery surrounding Matt Clark took another unexpected turn. Patty Williams approached him with her usual unpredictable energy, rambling about growing up in Genoa City and proudly bragging that she once dated Danny Romalotti. Matt stared at her blankly, unable to recognize the name or remember any connection to the stories she told. Before the conversation could continue, Phyllis Summers stormed into the coffee house and immediately accused Patty of lying, reigniting another chaotic confrontation. Patty eventually left, but not before ominously telling Matt they should continue their conversation later. Once Patty disappeared, Matt curiously asked Phyllis why she always seemed to be fighting with someone. Phyllis admitted she had plenty of enemies and proceeded to unload a long history of Patty's disturbing crimes. The conversation soon turned surprisingly personal. Matt confessed that there were people who hated him too, even though he couldn't remember exactly why. There was genuine confusion in his eyes, mixed with flashes of fear each time fragments of his past surfaced. He then asked Phyllis about the heated argument she had earlier with Kane Ashby, teasing her about holding grudges and being attracted to dangerous men. The questions caught Phyllis off guard, but before she could fully respond, Matt revealed one crucial detail that suddenly shifted the entire conversation. He remembered he was from Los Angeles. The revelation instantly sharpened Phyllis's attention. She began pressing him with questions, trying to understand why he had come to Genoa City in the first place. At the same time, she warned him to stay far away from Patty, sensing danger surrounding them all. Then, in an almost bizarre moment of charm and awkwardness, Matt invited Phyllis to dinner, casually admitting he had lost his wallet and would need her to pay. But the humor quickly vanished when he mentioned Noah and Victor, explaining that they hated him and claimed his name was Matt Clark. The second Phyllis heard the name, shock crashed across her face like lightning. In that instant, she realized exactly who she had been talking to all along, and the danger surrounding him suddenly became very real. Back at Newman Enterprises, Adam informed Victor that Nick's behavior was growing more erratic by the hour and confessed his fear that Nick had already relapsed on fentanyl. For once, Victor did not resist the truth. He admitted Nick needed rehab before things spiraled completely out of control. Adam then revealed Nick's terrifying self-defense murder plan involving Matt and Detective Burrow. Victor immediately agreed that Nick needed to stay far away from the investigation before his obsession destroyed everything. But controlling Nick Newman was never going to be easy. When Nick later arrived at Sharon's house, Sharon was visibly relieved to see him safe, though that relief vanished almost instantly once the conversation shifted back to Matt. Noah admitted he wanted to join the hunt, but Nick insisted he would handle it personally alongside Detective Burrow because the situation was too dangerous. Then Nick openly explained his plan to manipulate Matt into attacking him so he could kill him legally. Noah shockingly supported the idea, clearly driven by his own anger and fear. Sharon, however, was horrified. She pleaded with Nick to focus on his recovery instead of revenge and begged him to let security professionals handle the situation. But Nick had crossed into dangerous emotional territory where reason no longer mattered. In a chilling moment that revealed just how broken he had become, Nick coldly declared that even prison no longer scared him. As Thursday arrived, the chaos only intensified. Phyllis began setting a mysterious trap, and it quickly became clear she was preparing a dangerous move involving Victor Newman and possibly Matt Clark himself. Since she now knew where Matt was hiding and understood how desperately the Newmans wanted him taken down, Phyllis suddenly possessed leverage that could change everything. Michael Baldwin confronted her directly, asking whether she planned to surrender Newman Enterprises in exchange for avoiding criminal charges. But Phyllis remained defiant, insisting she had a better plan in motion. Whatever she was planning carried the unmistakable energy of desperation mixed with ambition, and that combination had always made Phyllis incredibly dangerous. At the same time, Jack Abbott began skillfully manipulating Patty Williams, recognizing her lingering obsession with him and her hatred for Victor Newman as tools he could potentially use. Patty's desperate desire to reconnect with Jack created an emotional vulnerability he seemed more than willing to exploit. The dangerous chemistry between them hinted that Patty might soon become a weapon in Jack's ongoing war against Victor, adding another unstable element to an already explosive situation. Victor also confronted Nick directly with hard truths that nobody else could force him to face. He demanded that Nick enter rehab immediately before his addiction destroyed him completely. Predictably, Nick reacted with anger and paranoia, likely convinced that Adam and Victor had joined forces against him. The growing isolation around Nick only pushed him deeper into reckless behavior, and by Friday, the consequences became terrifyingly real. Nick found himself making a dangerous deal in the park, likely purchasing another bag of pills from a dealer as his addiction tightened its grip once again. Adam's suspicions about the fentanyl relapse were proving true, and it seemed inevitable that the rest of the Newman family would soon discover the heartbreaking reality. Meanwhile, Kane Ashby was left stunned by Lily in what appeared to be an emotional moment connected to Malcolm's surgery. There was even the possibility of a kiss between them, a fragile and emotional acknowledgement of the sacrifice Kane was making before Lily departed for New York to stand beside Malcolm during his transplant procedure. Far away from Genoa City's darkness, Claire Grace Newman and Holden Novak continued growing closer in New York after spending time together with Holden's mother, Stephanie. Yet even in those warmer moments, uncertainty lingered beneath the surface. Holden remained deeply worried about Malcolm's treatment, while Claire still waited for him to finally reveal the truth about Audra Charles's hidden Los Angeles secret. The chemistry between them was undeniable, but viewers could already sense the tension building toward the moment when Holden finally tells her everything. And once that truth comes out, it could change Claire's entire perception of Audra forever. As the explosive week of May 18th through the 22nd approaches, the stakes rise even higher, with May sweeps racing toward its dramatic conclusion. Nick's relapse is expected to worsen rapidly, pushing him closer to a complete emotional and psychological collapse. At the same time, Matt Clark's memories are beginning to return piece by piece, threatening to expose dangerous truths everyone hoped would stay buried. Malcolm is expected back on screen soon as the New York transplant storyline unfolds, while Kane and Lily grow emotionally closer after surviving the ordeal together. Jack continues pulling strings behind the scenes with Patty. Claire pressures Holden for the full truth about Audra's Los Angeles past, and Billy Abbott and Sally Spectra try balancing excitement about their future baby with fears that consequences may still be waiting for them. Through it all, Phyllis remains determined to avoid prison at any cost. Victor continues juggling multiple crises at once, and Christine Romalotti faces mounting pressure to put both Kane and Phyllis behind bars. Adam grows increasingly worried about Nick's downward spiral, while Detective Burrow becomes more deeply entangled in the dangerous games unfolding around Matt Clark. Even Crazy Patty may circle back toward Matt once again, potentially adding another layer of instability to an already combustible situation. And just beyond the horizon, another major shift is coming to Genoa City, as Jill Abbott returns later this summer in a brand new form, now portrayed by Days of Our Lives actress Lauren Koslow, a recast that promises to bring even more dramatic changes to an already volatile world where nobody's secrets stay buried forever. The deeper the week pushed into chaos, the more Genoa City began to feel like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Every hallway inside Newman Enterprises carried whispers of betrayal, every family dinner felt loaded with suspicion, and every late-night conversation seemed to end with someone walking away angry, terrified, or completely broken. Nick Newman's downward spiral was no longer something hidden quietly behind closed doors. The cracks were spreading fast, and the people who loved him were beginning to realize they might already be too late to stop what was coming. His obsession with Matt Clark had evolved into something far more dangerous than revenge. It had become a mission fueled by addiction, rage, and hopelessness, the kind of emotional storm that destroys not only the person trapped inside it, but everyone standing nearby. Nick moved through the city with restless intensity, unable to sit still for more than a few moments at a time. His hands trembled when nobody was looking, his thoughts racing so fast that even simple conversations became difficult to follow. Yet every time someone tried to reach him emotionally, he pushed them away harder than before. The fentanyl relapse was eating at him from the inside out, clouding his judgment and feeding the dangerous fantasy that killing Matt Clark would somehow fix the damage done to his life. In Nick's mind, Matt had become more than a man. He had become the symbol of everything painful, humiliating, and broken. Every memory, every fear, every ounce of guilt Nick carried now had a face attached to it, and that made him terrifyingly determined. Adam watched helplessly as his brother slipped further beyond reason. For all of Adam's flaws, even he understood there was a line you could not cross without destroying yourself forever. He could see it in Nick's eyes now, that cold recklessness that comes when someone no longer values their own future. Victor Newman tried to maintain control the only way he knew how, with pressure, commands, and forceful intervention. But beneath his hard exterior, even he could sense the situation spiraling beyond control. Sharon, meanwhile, carried a quieter kind of fear, the kind that settles into a mother's heart when she realizes love alone may not be enough to save someone. Every time Nick walked out the door, Sharon looked at him as if she feared it might be the last time she saw the son she recognized. At the center of the chaos stood Matt Clark himself, still trapped inside the terrifying fog of fractured memories and missing identity. Small flashes from Los Angeles continued creeping back into his mind like broken pieces of an unfinished nightmare. Faces appeared without names. Voices echoed through his thoughts without context. Moments of fear struck him suddenly, leaving him disoriented and shaken. The more he remembered, the more dangerous he became. Not because he was intentionally violent, but because the truth surrounding him was clearly darker than anyone wanted to admit. Even Matt himself could feel that something ugly waited at the end of his missing memories. And somewhere deep inside him, instinct was beginning to scream that Genoa City was not a place he had arrived in by accident. Phyllis Summers found herself dangerously close to the center of everything once again. Discovering Matt's identity had handed her a powerful piece of information. and Phyllis had never been someone who ignored leverage when it landed in her hands. But beneath her confidence was real panic. Criminal charges were closing in around her, pressure from Victor Newman was intensifying, and prison was becoming less of a distant possibility and more of an approaching reality. That desperation sharpened every decision she made. Phyllis started weaving together plans within plans, manipulating conversations, gathering information, and calculating how to survive no matter who got hurt in the process. Yet even she could not fully predict how dangerous Matt Clark might become once his memories finally returned completely. Meanwhile, in New York, the emotional atmosphere surrounding Malcolm Winter's surgery created a temporary pocket of vulnerability far away from Genoa City's growing war zone. Lily Winters tried to remain strong while carrying the overwhelming emotional burden of watching someone she loved fight for survival. Hospitals always had a way of stripping life down to its most fragile truths, and in those long, quiet hours filled with uncertainty, Lily found herself leaning emotionally closer to Kane Ashby than she ever expected. Watching him willingly risk everything to save Malcolm forced her to confront feelings she had tried desperately to bury. The complicated history between them lingered heavily in every glance, every conversation, every moment of silence shared in hospital waiting rooms lit by cold fluorescent lights. Kane himself seemed changed by the experience. Gone was the arrogance and defensiveness that had defined so much of his past. In its place stood a man exhausted by mistakes and quietly desperate for redemption. Lily could see the sincerity in him now in ways she had not allowed herself to before. And as Malcolm's surgery approached, emotions that had remained buried for years slowly resurfaced between them. There was pain there, yes, but also familiarity, tenderness, and the dangerous possibility of forgiveness. The emotional closeness growing between Kane and Lily threatened to reshape their future completely once they returned home. Not far away, another truth hovered dangerously close to exploding into the open. Claire Grace Newman continued pressing Holden Novak for answers about Audra Charles and the mysterious Los Angeles secret he had promised to reveal. The longer Holden delayed, the more anxious Claire became. She could feel that whatever happened in LA was serious enough to change everything she thought she knew about Audra. At first, their time together in New York felt warm and hopeful, especially after bonding with Holden's mother, Stephanie. There was comfort in those moments, a softness that allowed Claire to briefly escape the chaos consuming her family back home. But even during their happiest conversations, the tension of the hidden truth remained between them like a ticking clock. Holden struggled with the burden of what he knew. Every time he looked at Claire, guilt crossed his face because he understood that revealing Audra's secret might destroy relationships, trust, and possibly entire futures. Yet keeping the truth buried seemed impossible now. Audra's past in Los Angeles was inching closer to exposure, and once the details came out, there would be no taking them back. Claire sensed his hesitation growing stronger by the day, and eventually her patience began to wear thin. She demanded honesty, refusing to remain in the dark any longer. That confrontation promised to become one of the most emotionally explosive moments of the coming weeks. Back in Genoa City, Jack Abbott continued his dangerous manipulation of Patty Williams with careful precision. Patty's emotional instability made her unpredictable, but it also made her vulnerable to anyone who understood how to guide her obsessions. Jack recognized how deeply Patty still longed for him, how desperately she wanted validation, affection, and purpose. He also knew her hatred for Victor Newman remained alive beneath the surface. By subtly encouraging those emotions, Jack was slowly turning Patty into a possible weapon in his ongoing feud with Victor. The situation carried enormous risk because Patty was never someone who operated within limits. Once emotionally triggered, there was no telling how far she might go. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, Billy Abbott and Sally Spectra tried holding on to hope. Their excitement about the future and the possibility of building a family together offered rare warmth inside an increasingly dark storyline. But even those hopeful moments were shadowed by fear. Consequences from past decisions still lingered around them, threatening to disrupt the happiness they were trying so hard to protect. Sally especially understood how quickly life in Genoa City could shift from joy to heartbreak. Every happy moment felt fragile, as though disaster could arrive without warning. As May Sweeps barreled toward its climax, the city itself seemed to pulse with tension. Victor continued pressuring Christine Romolotti to aggressively pursue charges against both Kane and Phyllis. Adam kept trying to pull Nick back from the edge before it was too late. Detective Burrow found himself drawn deeper into the dangerous web surrounding Matt Clark, unaware that Nick intended to use him as part of a deadly self-defense setup. And looming over everything was the terrifying certainty that Matt's full memories were returning faster than anyone realized. Because once Matt Clark finally remembers who he really is, the entire balance of Genoa City could change forever.